Electricity Minister, Dr. Kgosientso Ramokgopa, has denied that Stage 6 load shedding was ever implemented, especially in Johannesburg. This is after some residents complained about the frequency of outages this past weekend. Following a number of breakdowns, Stage 6 load shedding had to be implemented last week Friday, we're told. The power cuts have now been lowered to Stage 4 since midday yesterday, and for the week ahead, we'll be alternating between Stages 3 and 4 from today. So let's get you a sense of what else we should anticipate in a context where South Africans are being warned that the rolling power cuts will likely continue for the rest of the week. We're joined now by engineer and energy expert Mthunzi Luthuli, no stranger to our platform, joining us in studio this Monday morning. Great to have you back with us, sir. Thanks very much, as always, for making time. You know, I wonder if I can just start with this quote from the Cape Times, who've covered the story in their front page today. We've asked the question, what should we expect for the festive season? Well, the Cape Times has a clear answer for us, telling us to brace for more festive season cuts. And there's a quote here from Kgosientso Ramokgopa, who spoke yesterday during his weekly briefing. He said there, "We are in a situation where Stage 6 is an unwelcomed, extraordinary event. It significantly disrupts the lives of people, industry, and undermines the people of our country to recover and to keep their jobs." So this is a man who tone, content, is saying the right stuff, held an emergency briefing when Stage 6 was announced, but we can't help but feel like we're actually not moving forward.
Yeah, good morning, and good morning to the viewers. Your diagnosis is 100% right. We are not moving forward. What is happening is that the politicians, they give nice sound bites. They say we've turned the corner, we're stemming the tide, and they use that type of language to do two things: to try and make sure that the public is not too anxious, is not too angry, and also to try and play down their failings. Yeah, we are definitely not moving forward. The situation is not improving, and I think that we're not going to see an improvement over the festive season. Definitely not.
Right. In fact, the same article I've just quoted from speaks of a Stage 2 on average that should last throughout December. December last year, we were pretty much in the same situation, and there were all kinds of promises made. But those are the optics. At a technical level, he mentioned two reasons, the minister, around why Stage 6 was implemented. The first is that there was a sudden uptick in demand, 1,500 megawatts. I'm not sure where that may come from in a context where it's much warmer and people supposedly are using less electricity. That's the presumption. The other is that 5 generating units went offline in a space of 48 hours. Again, both completely unacceptable at the very least, given how much time we've had to fix this.
Yeah. So, regarding the first reason, it's completely unacceptable. The 1,500 so-called unexpected increase in demand, they attributed to the heat wave. And they said people were probably using air conditioners more than they normally do. Now, this is not acceptable. I mean, blaming the weather. We've always had warm summers and cold winters. Right. When it's cold in winter, they tell us it's cold. That's why we have load shedding. When it's hot in summer, they tell us it's hot. That's why we have load shedding. It's nonsense. Regarding the second reason, yes, you're correct, but there was an additional reason that he gave, and that was the fact that they had to replenish the emergency reserves. Right. Now, again, this is not an acceptable reason. Operating a national power system, you always use your emergency reserves. Primarily during peaks. You should only be using them during the peak periods, the morning peak and the evening peak period. And then you replenish them. Usually at night, after 10 o'clock when the evening peak is over. So, between 10 and 4 p.m. in the morning, that's when you replenish. And on weekends when the demand is low. So, giving an excuse that you had to replenish emergency reserves is not really an excuse, because that's something that you should do just as an ordinary course of running a power system.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. All of this is not exceptional, actually.
Yeah, it's
and
not.
Therefore shouldn't have warranted an escalation of load shedding. In fact, we shouldn't have load shedding to begin with, but I suppose many of us are choosing to speak about the intensity as a start. Another issue that came up quite prominently, at least from the questions from journalists yesterday, is around what on earth is happening in Johannesburg. And I speak of this because those are the complaints we've received, and presumably you and I are Joburg residents, and so we'll know about this personally. But it did feel like there was a whole lot more load shedding than what we're used to, even at stage 6. You know, people having upwards of 10 hours a day without power. Kgosientso Ramokgopa, I think, threw City Power under the bus yesterday when he essentially said, look, from our perspective, we haven't implemented stage 8 load shedding, which is what it feels like. But City Power, as you know, has taken over the schedule, and they'll have to answer to that. What do you make of how City Power, as a locality, have dealt with taking over load shedding? Because the other thing to keep in mind, of course, is that the infrastructure is not made for this. It's not made to be switched on and off every 2 hours.
Yeah. Look, I think that it was bound to happen that when City Power takes over the load shedding schedules and the switching on and off, that there were going to be teething problems. So I see this as a teething problem, and I think over time it will smooth itself out.
Yeah. The question is at what cost, I suppose? You know, because that's the other concern, right? The state of the infrastructure, as I mentioned, is probably being compromised during this time while we go through those teething problems. Do you anticipate more complex explanations about why we need to have prolonged load shedding in the future because of these teething problems?
Yeah, they're going to give the reason that the infrastructure is...
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. You know, what we need, Ayanda, is just a lot more generation capacity.
Yeah.
That's really what we need. And we're not procuring generation capacity the right way. Let me just give you an example. Koeberg, one unit at Koeberg, and unit 1 just came online last week. One unit at Koeberg gives you 920 megawatts, right? Almost 1 gigawatt, right? One unit. Now, what do? We're going to procure renewables. Now, the renewable plants vary in sizes, but the bigger ones are around 50 megawatts, right? Now, how many 50 megawatt renewable plants do you have to procure to get the same capacity as one unit in Koeberg? That would be 20. 20 of those 50 megawatts, 20 to get the capacity of one nuclear unit. It's crazy. And even after getting that capacity in terms of megawatts, the energy output would be far less because they have low capacity factors. So they only operate 25 to 30% of the time. So the megawatt hours that you produce, which is energy, will be far, far lower. So the question is, why are we doing this?
Right. I mean, I can imagine, I can hear those who are batting for renewables speaking about the just energy transition and the need to move away from coal, etc., etc. But the point you're making is that this is all happening in the context of a crisis.
Yeah.
Right? And I suppose there are priorities that need to be made in the context of a crisis.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder then about, and there's been all kinds of allegations, right, of any kind of political interests that want us to move in a particular direction. I mean, are you saying it's time for us to heed some of those warnings?
Yes, it is. But look, South Africa contributes 1.1%. 1.1% to global gas house emissions. That's nothing. So even if we were to close all our power stations tomorrow, we wouldn't move the needle. We would not move the gas house the greenhouse gas emissions needle. So the question is, why are we prioritizing this? Especially if it comes at such a cost to our economy. What we should be doing is we should be doing what we know, build big power stations, base load, together with peaking stations, so that we stabilize the electricity situation in our country, make sure that we've got power not only for the present, but also for the future, so that we allow for economic growth and industrialization and all of that. Once we've done that, then we should start saying, okay, guys, let's look at how we can make our contribution towards reducing greenhouse gases. But to do what we're doing now is crazy, to be honest. And these explanations have been given to the politicians, and they just simply refuse to accept what is sensible. The question is why. The question is why. And I think the public needs to start asking those questions.
Sure. On that note, thank you very much for giving us your take. Really appreciate your time. I suppose this is a discussion and in some weird way a debate that is far from over. And I'm saying it's weird because surely there shouldn't be a debate about how to solve a crisis like this, given, of course, what is at stake. Mthunzi Luthuli, thanks for coming through, as always. Energy expert and an engineer, giving us his take about how we got here and what it will take to get out.